Hot Toys budget buys. Hot Toys, amazing figures under $200. Hot Toys are often expensive. They're $275 or more in most cases, but what amazing Hot Toys figures are out there that can still be purchased for under $200 US at major retailers? Well, today we're going to talk about that. But before we get started, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell down below so you're notified when content goes live on this channel. I've spent the last 7 years building a Hot Toys collection that I'm very proud of. A Hot Toys collection that I feel is very high quality. Well, today I'm going to help you do the same without breaking the bank. Many Hot Toys figures are expensive, but these ones can be found for discount, and they're also amazing quality. So we're going to look at 15 great figures today that I'm hoping can provide you some personal fulfillment should you choose to add them to your personal collection. With that said, let's get into it. All right, guys, so the first figure on the list is Hot Toys Wenwu from Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. You can find this figure for very cheap. It is ridiculously cheap now. It was $250, I think, at retail, and now you can get it for about half that out the door as of me recording this video. It's pretty remarkable. Nonetheless, I'm a huge fan of Shang-Chi. For those who know me know that it's one of my favorite films, period, let alone a Marvel film, and this figure is actually really great. There's so many great accessories. You have the ring effect, so you can combine him with Shang-Chi to do the connecting ring pose that they do at the end of the film. Hot Toys actually updated this head sculpt. The original head sculpt was not near as good as this one. I do think it's a little soft in the paint application, but in person it looks really, really good. It looks just like Tony Leung. And I think the outfit is really great. And again, this is one of Marvel's highest rated films from a critic standpoint and from a fan standpoint. I believe it still might be the highest fan score of all Marvel films, which is pretty remarkable. I'm really excited for Shang-Chi 2 if it ever gets released anytime soon, and I think this is really cool. You have the ring effects that you can actually attach to the swooshing blue effects there that attach to the rings. You have the arm ring effect that you can put his arm inside, so you can do something really cool there to have him shooting the rings out. Even if you don't, you want to put him in the rings on the wrist pose, you can do that as well. Be careful with the rings when you adjust them. They can come unglued if you're not careful, so you do want to be cautious and deliberate with your actions. This has a lot of presence. This is a figure that I think looks great on the shelf, particularly when you have the ring effects on him and the blue energy effects. You want to hide the elbow joints. You got a 3/4 sleeve here, so you can very easily conceal them with keeping the arms in a position where the elbows are not like this. So you can very much hide these joints, so don't even worry about that. Even then, with this pose, you can adjust it and make things a little bit more reasonable. Like here, you can see you're not going to see the joints at all, and you're not going to see the wrist pegs because of the gloved hands. So very, very cool effect there. Again, you have the ring effects here that I think do a lot for this figure. And these are the blogger photos, which are the final product images from bloggers who get these figures in hand early. This looks great. You can see he and Shang-Chi together. We're going to talk about Shang-Chi in a sec here, but this figure has a lot of presence. Even if you put him in a pose like this, where he doesn't even have the swooshing energy effects, him standing like this with the rings on him is absolutely fantastic. Again, very underrated figure, so look at what you can do here with these guys. This is super cool. And again, if you really like the film, this is worth picking up. If you don't like the film, I get it. But for me, I love this film, and I think this is an absolute must-have. I got it, actually didn't even have to wait for a discount. I got this one pretty early in my collecting. Once I, knew this one was announced, I drove home and pre-ordered it immediately. After I saw the film, I was like, that was incredible. I need these figures. And they're here because I absolutely love this film. So let me know what you think about Wenwu in the comments below. Let's move on to the next one. So thinking more deeply about this, it's actually going to be 16 figures. I unintentionally lied to you because I put Shang-Chi and Wenwu as one bullet point on my list, but it's going to be 2 separate figures. This is Shang-Chi from Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is one of the best head sculpts that Hot Toys has ever produced. This has the same type of energy effects, just in terms of color. They have an orange tone instead of a blue tone. Shang-Chi is an incredible character. I cannot wait to see where he goes in the MCU. The one downside of this figure that many people, including myself, have pointed out, the enlarged pecs. The pecs look a little bit large. They look this way on the prototype. We never quite noticed it, but on the final product, pec gate has very much become a thing. If you pose this figure in a certain way, you are not going to notice them at all. So it just depends on how you put him. Like if you look at this pose right here, you're not going to notice any of those pectoral issues. If you put him in a pose where he's not quite a little bit hunched, you're going to see that. Shang-Chi and Simu Liu have, strong pecs, I'm sure. I'm sure he got into a pretty strong fitness routine for this film, but you can't really ignore the quality of this head sculpt and how good this figure looks on the shelf with the quality of the tailoring and the overall outfit. It has a huge presence to it. Whether he's using the stick, or whether he's using the rings with the energy effects, this thing has a ton of presence, and he's a great character in a great film. So to me, this is an absolute buy, especially for the price you're getting it at. Again, probably getting this guy for $125 or a little bit more out the door. That's hard to beat. That's like 50% off. Again, whether you're watching this video as I'm recording it or a little bit later, it depends. The price could fluctuate, but you're not paying anywhere close to retail, and you're definitely getting this guy for under $200. So absolute must buy, great head sculpt. I got this guy pretty early. I'm super excited that other people are considering picking it up. Look at the quality of this head sculpt. It's one of Hot Toys' best. It's just absolutely awesome. So definitely consider it if you like the character. And the next figure on the list is the Hot Toys Boba Fett repaint armor from The Mandalorian. So if you remember in Mandalorian Season 2, when Boba gets his armor back, he's bird poo Boba for a little bit, and then he repaints the armor and you have this look. This is a really cool look. Whether this is considered definitive Boba Fett to you is totally up to your experience with Star Wars. To most people, I would argue it's probably not. You're probably going to go with Return of the Jedi or maybe even Empire Strikes Back. But if you want something from the new Disney era and you love The Mandalorian, this is certainly a great option. The Book of Boba Fett was not a great experience for many Star Wars collectors, but the Boba Fett repaint armor is a really cool looking figure. I've seen this figure many times in person. It's absolutely great. You can get this guy for very well under $200. It's a great figure if you're looking for a Boba Fett. You have the skirt, you have the armor, you have the helmet there, and he goes well with the chrome Mandalorian. This guy has a lot of accessories, flame effects, other weaponry that can really make him come to life. And it's just a really cool figure. Again, Boba Fett from Season 2 of The Mandalorian was absolutely awesome. Book of Boba Fett, not so much, but if you're looking for a representation of older Boba Fett, then this would certainly be a great option for you. Again, it has a lot of presence, really good paint applications, really cool tailoring. It's like, you know, kind of nomad Boba, if you will. And I like that look. I like this look for him. And I think it's a great Boba Fett to add to your collection. So for me, this would be a great figure to add to your collection if you're looking for a Boba Fett that is definitely not going to break the bank at all. And a surprise, we have a second Boba Fett here. The Boba Fett Bird Poop Boba Fett is actually a very good figure. I purchased this figure actually with my friend Kiko Collects, so check out his channel if you have not already. Great channel, great guy, great friend. In actually Cincinnati at the toy department, I picked this one up. It's a great figure. I love the weathering on this figure. Again, this is a Nomad Boba look, and this is the look that he has as he appears in the Season 2 of The Mandalorian once he just picks up the armor again. You have this Boba Fett here with a lot of weathering on him, jet effects with rocket launching effects there, and a lot of really cool just tailoring on this figure. And overall, the presence it has is pretty awesome. And again, a lot of times we collect for scenes, for moments, for nostalgia, and this certainly has that. This scene in Mandalorian Season 2 got us so excited for what was to come for the Boba Fett character. It didn't end up going where we wanted to in Book of Boba Fett, as I mentioned, but nonetheless, it was a great moment for Star Wars. This is one of my favorite scenes in Star Wars, and I love this armor because it represents my love for Mandalorian Season 2 and the character of Boba Fett, and I just love the badass look of it. It looks weathered, it's been through some shit, he's been fighting, he's been going through a lot of stuff, and you have the Nomad Boba if you want to pick up the 2-pack version, but the singular version is also really great. I mean, look at that. Look at the detail on that helmet there and the armor. It's just awesome. Keep in mind, the single version does not come with a Tamora Morrison Boba Fett head sculpt. You have to get the 2-pack for that. You just get this Boba Fett in the single version, but you can find this guy for well under $200 retail. Very, very close, very far from $200. You could probably get him for about $100 if you look hard enough. So this is a Boba Fett that you can clearly add to your collection that looks great, and you're going to be very happy with. If you want original trilogy, you have to go a different route, but if not, this is certainly a great option. And we're sensing a trend here. We have the Hot Toys IG-11 from The Mandalorian Season 1. A lot of the Mandalorian figures were overproduced just because of the fact that the show was so popular, and Hot Toys was in sort of overproduction mode at this time. And the IG-11 figure is fantastic. If this was not a figure that was so overly produced, I think it would probably be a grail to a lot of people. It has die-cast components, it has really cool weaponry, a ton of presence. This is a big, tall figure, and it actually feels very high quality. Again, I love IG-11. I thought he was a really great character. I didn't like what they ended up doing to him and what the route they decided to take his character, but his introduction in episode 1 of The Mandalorian, is really awesome. And of course, that episode is really what started it all for Mandalorian fans. And I think IG-11 plays a huge part in that. And of course, he plays a huge part in the end of season 1 as well, where he does some really badass stuff. So IG-11, very cool character, very cool looking figure with a lot of presence on the shelf. And again, if you're a Mandalorian fan, this guy is hard to ignore. He's a really great figure. So should you have space for him in your collection, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It has light up functions. You got to put batteries in the helmet. Not exactly ideal, but again, look at him standing next to Durasteel Mando. He looks great. And you know what? This guy is a pivotal part of Mandalorian history and Star Wars history at this point because of how popular The Mandalorian has become. And it looks great. I love this photo, by the way. This is a total sort of fan fiction type photo that really is really creative. And this IG-11 figure is just fantastic. So if you're considering picking up a Mandalorian figure, you can find this guy for very, very cheap. $125 to $150 probably out the door. He's really great. Maybe my most controversial choice so far. This is the Hot Toys Avengers Endgame Loki figure. Now, this is a controversial figure because of the head sculpt. The final head sculpt was not everyone's favorite. This is a head sculpt that was never a 10 out of 10, but when the final product was shown, there were questionable decisions made in regards to the hairline and the overall likeness in relation to the actor Tom Hiddleston. Overall, I think this is a very good figure. Is the head sculpt a 10? Absolutely not. Is it one of Hot Toys' finest works? No. I think it's probably a 7.5 to an 8 head sculpt. When you put the helmet on him, it's not a huge deal because it covers up most of the face anyway. So I don't think that this one's going to be make or break insofar as the head sculpt is concerned because the helmet really does most of the heavy lifting. There are going to be Tom Hiddleston figures in the future that are probably better in terms of the overall head sculpt, but the proportions on this guy, the overall presence this figure offers, is absolutely incredible. And if you're looking at the original Avengers version, this one is far superior, and it really does get the job done. This is still the best Loki figure that has been released from Hot Toys thus far, and it's the most iconic outfit. This is Loki's probably most iconic appearance in the MCU, arguably, and this is my favorite look for him and my favorite movie for him, honestly. So this is a figure that I had to have in my collection as a huge Loki fan, and I think if you are a Loki fan, you're not going to be disappointed with this one, particularly with how cheap you can buy it on the market now. It's very, very cheap, under $200, probably about $160, $170 out the door, most likely. You're gonna be able to get this guy for a very reasonable price. And he really does offer a ton of presence in your display. Whether the head sculpt is a 10 or not, it's a great figure. I'm hoping they make him better one day, maybe an artisan version, but until then, this one really gets the job done. So next up, we have the Hot Toys Shore Trooper Squad Leader. Well, the Shore Trooper was a figure that became a grail for quite some time. After its original appearance in Rogue One, they actually decided to remake, or not remake, but make different versions of the Shore Trooper, including the Squad Leader and another version. And the Squad Leader, unfortunately, was overproduced and tanked the value of the original Stormtrooper to a degree. And of course, tanked its own value, really, because this figure was so overproduced, they were selling it for so ridiculously cheap that collectors were able to get this thing for sub $100 at times. It was pretty wild times. Nowadays, you can probably get this guy for around $125, $150 out the door. But if you are a Trooper collector, or you just simply like how this one looks and you're a Star Wars fan, this is a great Trooper to add to your collection. I had this Trooper for quite some time and I really enjoyed it in my collection. It does have a presence on the shelf. It has a really cool and unique color design. I'm not the biggest Trooper guy, so I did end up moving on from it. But if you are a Trooper guy and you like these type of figures in your collection, then I don't think you're going to be disappointed with the Shore Trooper, no matter which version you get. And the fact that you can get this one so cheap really scratches that itch for Trooper collectors and really does add quite a bit to the overall immersion of your Star Wars display, should you want to go that route. Maybe one of the most slept on Hot Toys figures of all time is Hot Toys King Shark. King Shark from the Suicide Squad was a great character played by Sylvester Stallone. This was a character that was unsurprisingly pretty great considering it's James Gunn. James Gunn has a great track record of making sort of niche, obscure characters become really popular and well-liked in pop culture. And King Shark is now one of them. King Shark is a figure that, again, is not connected to a whole ton right now until the DCEU starts getting moving. And even then, we don't know how King Shark is going to fit into all of that. But regardless, he looks great. You do have slightly visible shoulder joints. I can promise you in person, it's truly not that big a deal. You probably won't even notice it. But the figure is really cool. It's very unique. It has a custom body, obviously, that's different from any other Hot Toys figure released thus far. And it has a lot of presence. He's big, he's bulky. It's a really cool character. It was a great film. And this is the type of figure I think that's going to stand out in your collection. You have a shark toy here that is pretty unique. The detail in the teeth, the mouth, the eyes, the skin texture. This is a very unique type of figure that I think is going to look cool in a lot of people's collections. It's going to raise some questions because people are going to walk in and be like, why do you have a giant shark in your house on display? And you can explain to them that's because the Suicide Squad is awesome and this figure was a value and I found it in a WillFoxification video for a budget discount. So you can do all that. So yeah, other than that, I think you're in a good spot. This guy is worth picking up. Yeah, he's going to be worth it. I promise you. And no one's going to look at you funny. I can promise you. And next up, we have the Vision from the WandaVision TV series on Disney+. So make no mistake about it. This is the best Vision that has been released thus far by Hot Toys. I had the Age of Ultron figure. It was a good figure. It did come with Mjolnir, while this one does not because he did not wield Mjolnir in this show. But this Vision has improved proportions, a better head sculpt, and it's overall just a better figure. So this figure is awesome, guys. It's a really good figure and it's insanely cheap. It just depends whether you like Vision and whether you consider him valuable to your collection. If you do, then this figure is probably going to be one that you're going to want to consider picking up, because if you're looking for the best Vision, as of now, this is it. There could be others released at some point, but Hot Toys have released a few now, and they never really seem to perform that well in terms of their overall sales, as it appears from the outside looking in at least. But nonetheless, you have great tailoring, you have proportions here that work. Again, this looks a lot like Paul Bettany as the Vision, and you have a wired cape that really allows for maximum posability. This figure has, again, better proportions than the original, and you can do a lot with it, and it does have a lot of presence on the shelf. Vision is not everyone's absolute favorite character, so that's probably why he's gone to the bargain bin, but if he is an important character to you, then this one could be worthy of adding to your collection. Vision looks really cool, he has a lot of presence, and again, if you're looking to build a collection that really is striking in that way, he's a great option. And really, he's a kind of an underrated character. He's not my favorite, but I do really enjoy Vision in the MCU, and if I ever decide to add another Vision, this would certainly be the one coming to my collection. Hot Toys Cable is one of the figures that I've come around on. When I originally saw the blogger photos, the final product photos for this figure, I wasn't quite sold. Even looking at them now, I'm not quite sold. But when I saw the figure in person, I was much more sold. I think the detail on the body is absolutely fantastic. I do think the proportions so far as the shirtless body is concerned are a bit off. I'm not thrilled with them. But when it comes to the overall look of the figure with the overall traditional outfit on with all the layers, I think it looks much better. I think the detail on the arm is fantastic. And I think when you have the poncho on him, he looks very good. The head sculpt in person is much better than it appears in these blogger photos, and the proportions are much better. There's a lot of detail and intricacies that went into developing this figure, and while again, I think he does look a little bit thin and a little bit gaunt with the outfit totally removed, you can do that if you choose to. For me, if I were to display this figure, I would have him in poses such as this, because I think it really highlights the figure's strengths much more effectively. Nonetheless, it's a great figure. It's a good head sculpt of Josh Brolin. It's not the best I've ever seen, but it is a solid representation. And again, if you're a Deadpool fan and you want a Cable in your collection, this is certainly a good option with a lot of presence associated with it on your shelf. Just depends how important Cable is to you. Maybe this Cable will show up in the MCU at some point. That would be great. I'd love to see that. If not, you still got a great figure of Josh Brolin's representation. Deadpool 2 was a very good film. I very much enjoyed it. So Cable is one that really adds quite a bit to your display. And again, he's the only Cable that exists. So if you want one, this is the one to get, and you do not have to break the bank to get it. Again, look at this figure with the poncho and everything on him. It looks pretty good. You can do a lot with him. You just got to hide those elbow joints, in my opinion, and the visible joints on the side there, but you can easily do that if you're careful and deliberate about your posing. It looks good. You can get this guy for super cheap, so you might want to consider it if you like the character. So my motto traditionally is buy nicer, buy twice. If budget is not a concern to you, then you should buy a Doctor Strange from the Multiverse of Madness if you're looking to purchase a Doctor Strange collectible figure by Hot Toys. If not, and you're looking for a more budget-friendly option, the Doctor Strange from Spider-Man No Way Home is a great option. You have the table here, and of course you have a head sculpt that is very similar to the Avengers Infinity War version, which is solid, but not near as good as the Multiverse of Madness version that was released subsequently. So If you're looking for one that's not going to break the bank, this is the one. If you're looking for one that is a little bit more expensive, around the $300 range, you're probably looking at Multiverse of Madness. But this one you can probably get for about half that. And it's still a very great Doctor Strange representation. And if you're looking to get started, maybe you don't feel you need the very best. You can get a one that you're very much happy with that's going to look great on your shelf, that you're going to be satisfied and content with. And this would be that option if that is the case. You have a lot of great magic effects here. The tailoring on these Doctor Strange figures are always very strong. And again, you can do a lot with the wired cape and a lot of great things with the overall articulation with this figure. Doctor Strange from No Way Home, he plays a very important role, obviously. So this is a figure that you could do a lot with. And even if you didn't want to do too much with him, he looks great in a stoic pose as well. So this is one, guys, that I personally am not going to pick up because I'm not a huge Doctor Strange person. I like the character. He's not overly important to me. But again, look at what you can do with the display here. There's a lot you can do that you can only do with this Spider-Man No Way Home version. Multiverse of Madness does not come with this type of setup, so might be worth considering. Hot Toys collectors have seemingly forgot about Cyborg, because Cyborg was a figure that a lot of collectors clamored for years because Hot Toys seemingly showed no interest in producing him. Well, eventually they listened to the fans and they decided that they were going to produce this Ray Fisher Cyborg from the Snyderverse DCEU. Well, that DCEU is no longer, and now we have James Gunn ushering in a new era for DC. And of course, you have a Cyborg figure that is kind of a remnant of the past. It doesn't fit in with the new DC universe that's going to be part of James Gunn's franchise. So it just depends whether you love the Snyder Cut or other Snyderverse films in relation to the DC universe at the time. However, this figure looks great. There are a lot of great things to like about it. The light up feature is very strong, but again, it is battery operated, so the batteries could die over time. If you don't have him lit up, he doesn't look near as lifelike. And if that's the case, the presence on the shelf could be a little bit diminished. Nonetheless, this does look great regardless. The head sculpt, the likeness to Ray Fisher, is very strong. You can do a lot with it. And again, this is a very intricate and cool looking figure. Cyborg was a great character in the Snyder Cut. I really enjoyed that film. And I think if you did as well and you're a fan of DC, this could be a guy that you want to pick up. You're not going to see this iteration of Cyborg ever again from Hot Toys. So if you want him, this is your one chance to pick him up while he's still in stock. Once he sells out, maybe he could be a little bit more coveted. It's so hard to predict these type of things, but I think the overall quality of the figure is hard to ignore. You have the helmeted version here for the special edition, and of course for the regular edition, you just get the half-mast Ray Fisher portrait, which I think looks great. This is a really cool looking figure. It has, again, a lot of presence. It's very machine and sort of Transformers-like. So I think that can appeal to a lot of different collectors. A lot of presence on the shelf. This one is going to be a really good purchase if you like the character, and if so, it's hard to ignore the quality of that head sculpt. This is really good. And next up, we have the Hot Toys Taskmaster. Taskmaster is from the Black Widow solo film, a film that did not perform all that well financially, although it had COVID to contend with, which was very difficult times for the entire world. So this figure is actually very good. This comes down purely to a matter of, do you like the character? Do you like what they did with the character compared to what the comic version of the character is actually like? At some point, you could see another version of Taskmaster in the MCU, kind of like the Mandarin, where of course you got Wen Wu in comparison to the Ben Kingsley version that originally, was kind of somewhat serious and then turned into the butt of a joke by the end of the film, and of course in Shang-Chi as well. This is a very, very good figure. This is a figure that I've considered picking up multiple times because I really liked Taskmaster in the film, and I do think the character actually had a lot of, emotional weight to her. I really enjoyed it. I didn't like that they used a male stuntman to make it look like a male character and then pulled the rug out from under you. I didn't love that, but I gotta say, the figure looks great. Tons of presence here. If you're a fan of the Thunderbolts film that's going to be coming out soon, if you're excited about that, Taskmaster is returning. Although the outfit appears to be changing a little bit from my recollection, I guess we'll see when the film actually drops. But this figure is very cheap. If that film is great, people could be clamoring to pick this one up after the fact. So the fact that you can get this one so cheap may be kind of exciting for a lot of collectors and maybe pretty enticing. And if that's the case, you want to pick Taskmaster up while you can. This figure looks great. It's really, again, he's meant to replicate all of the, characters from the MCU that are iconic in their fight styles, and she's just imitating that. So very cool. Love this figure. Again, if you're looking for Taskmaster, another great buy here with a good figure. So what we have here is the definitive Hot Toys figure of Rocket Raccoon, in my personal opinion. It's from Avengers Endgame. It has two different scarves, a scarf that's actually a fabric material and a sculpted one, so you can do different things in terms of different poses that you may or may not be going for. The tailoring on this figure is absolutely awesome. This figure actually has a lot of presence. The only downside, you only get one sculpt and it's always screaming. So you never get to do anything else outside of the screaming sculpt. There is no stoic, stern sculpt with this one, no grinning sculpt, just a screaming one that really suits itself better for dynamic poses. You can see here, most of the blogger photos are dynamic poses because the head sculpt is very much tailor built to that. You can get this figure for very cheap on the secondary market still, and even from retailers as well, for under $200 out the door, probably much cheaper than that. This was very much overproduced, and again, there are other Rockets that people are in search for, and again, there are other characters that other collectors have prioritized over Rocket that have caused this one to go down quite a bit in terms of the overall price. Nonetheless, great quality figure. If you're going to get a Rocket, to me, this is the best one that has been released thus far, in my personal opinion. So you can get it so cheap, it's the best one. I think there's a lot to like about it. Again, only a screaming head sculpt, no stoic one, but regardless, it's a great option should you be looking for a Rocket for your collection. Maybe one of the most underrated Hot Toys of all time. Collectors were clamoring for a Lando Calrissian for quite some time, and when he was actually released, I think a lot of collectors turned a cold shoulder to him. Because what happened was a lot of figures were coming out at this time and a lot of figures were overproduced, so collectors knew they could wait and wait and wait and wait for discounts, and they have. And some collectors by that point decided, you know what, maybe I didn't need a Lando Calrissian as much as I thought I did. The likeness to Billy D. Williams is very strong here. I've owned this figure for a little while. I ended up selling it because Lando is not that important of a character to me personally, but if he is to you and you're a huge original trilogy Star Wars fan, then this is a figure that is very, very strong. The quality of the cape is fantastic. The inner lining with the yellow and the green is great. When you take the cape off, the proportions get a little bit funky, but when you put the cape on, he looks totally at home. Again, the likeness to the Billy D. Williams, the actor performing the character, is absolutely awesome, and the tailoring is fantastic. He doesn't come with a whole lot because he doesn't really get to do a whole lot in the films or have that many accessories that he's really using in the films, but you have his iconic blaster, his blue Cloud City outfit, and there's a lot that you can really do with him in terms of having him with the blaster or without that make your original trilogy collection feel a little bit more complete. So this is probably more for the completionist than anyone. Lando can be maybe someone's favorite character, but more often than not, he's not the character you first think of when you think of Star Wars. But regardless, he's a great accessory figure should you be looking to build out your universe. Maybe he's your favorite character, that's great. If so, this is an easy pickup for you. If not, if you're looking to build a display such as what you're seeing on the screen with original trilogy iconic Star Wars characters, he's a great fit for that. So I unintentionally lied to you guys twice in this video. We're actually gonna talk about 17 figures, not 15, not 16, 17, because we have two figures here that I wanna mention, the Batman Forever Batman, and of course the Throbbing, or Robin as he's more commonly known, Throbbing because the crotch region is quite pronounced on this costume. These figures are for nostalgic collectors. If you enjoyed Batman Forever and you love those Batman films, particularly these two characters in general, then you're gonna have a great time with these two figures. They're really cool figures. They look great on the shelf. Again, these are not my versions of Batman and Robin that I connect with, but for a lot of collectors, they are. If they are yours, then I think they come with a lot of great accessories. The costumes are very accurate and proportionate to what it looked like on screen, and I think the likenesses are actually pretty strong here. So you have great representations if these are important versions of the characters to you. If so, you can get these guys for well under $200 without breaking the bank a piece, and you'll be able to pay maybe $300 combined for both of them, or maybe even less. That's pretty good for Hot Toys figures nowadays. So if you like these characters, definitely consider them. So just some factors to consider when you're looking at buying Hot Toys on a budget. You really want to look at several factors. The first factor being, is the figure new or used? Used figures, you have to put a little bit of a microscope under because you have to look if there's any deficiencies that would justify the price that the figure is being sold for. Are there any issues with the figure? Does the seller have a reliable track record? Are you comfortable buying used figures in the first place? These are all questions that you're going to have to ask yourself. Me, as a collector, I tend to like buying new figures. That's just been my experience. It's been mostly positive, whereas buying used figures, I don't always have the best experience, but your experience may vary. You also want to look at when the figure was produced and released, because in general, Hot Toys figures do improve in quality over time. This is not always a reality because there are some older figures that have held up very well and really outshine figures that are much more recent in terms of their release. But in general, Hot Toys figures that have been announced and released more recently are of higher quality typically. You also want to look at whether the figure was an exclusive release or a standard wide release. Exclusive figures are not always more rare or sought after or higher in price on the secondary market, but that can occasionally be the case if it was, for one, just a smaller batch of the initial figure volume, or maybe the figure was more sought after on the aftermarket because a lot of people are feeling FOMO. Most figures are not exclusive, but there are some that have a special edition accessory that are deemed exclusive in nature that may be desirable for one reason or another. So that could factor into how much you're willing to pay and what the market has deemed that figure is worth after it's sold out. And when you're considering shopping deals at major retailers, there are some places that are very tried and true that you can look to. Comic Concepts is one that I mention all the time. I have an affiliate relationship with them. Pop Culture in Australia is another great option. Sideshow Collectibles have sales for Black Friday and throughout the year for Thanksgiving and other major holidays. So there are places similar to that that have great sales that you can always be on the lookout for. But you want to make sure that you compare prices across major retailers and even the used secondary market to determine what's going to be the best deal for you. And if you're just starting out with collecting, there are some other brands such as 3-0 or Mezco that can offer more budget-friendly options compared to what Hot Toys tends to offer. It depends on the figure. 3-0, for example, can offer Transformers figures, which can be very pricey, but some of their Walking Dead figures or Game of Thrones or Stranger Things can be a little bit on the cheaper end compared to Hot Toys figures. And Mezco, a lot of great figures there as well. I'm not a Mezco collector, but they do offer very affordable, great quality figures from what I've been told. Guys, thank you so much for joining me for this video today. I hope it was helpful and insightful and informative in some way. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them in the comments below. If there's some figures out there that you believe were left off this list that you can still find for a great price, feel free to add them in the comments below. I do want to note that there are many figures that you can buy for under $200, maybe from Infinity War or Endgame, or anything released from 2018 to 2022 or 2023, but I tried to find figures for this video that are still available at major retailers for purchase. There are a lot of used figures that you can very much find for under $200, but that list would be quite lengthy should I try to do something like that in scope. Nonetheless, guys, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any content as it goes live here. Thank you again for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out. See you later. Bye.